With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Taylor on with me, and I'm excited because I have a nice little bullet point list, and these bullet points are things like missing time and Bigfoot, and even the word Chupacabra's in here, so I'm very excited. And looks like quite a bit of this takes place in one of my favorite places that I used to live in for a few years, and that's Washington State. But Taylor, welcome on the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
I am glad that you got in touch. All right, so I don't know how much backstory we need to set us up with, Washington State. And it sounds like you grew up there, but wherever you wanted to begin, you go right ahead.
I'll just ramble around and you can reel me in when you want to. The first one, or the big one, why I called, first of all, I listen to your show all the time. So I got a pretty good understanding of the stuff that people think is interesting enough that other people would like to hear. And the first big thing was about, it was like 35 years ago. I was young, fairly recently married, had a 2-year-old kid. And my wife was, at the time, was literally 9 months pregnant with the next one. And so it was November, and I made the decision to talk her into not caring if I went deer hunting that weekend. And we both had lots of family in town, and she had lots of friends. It was a town we grew up in, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I was supposed to be back Saturday night for a wedding reception. Her friend had a wedding reception, and it was from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And so I was like, man, don't worry. I'll be home by 7, hop in the shower. We'll be over there. No problem. She's like, okay, cool. We'll get your little sister to babysit the 2-year-old. I'll be ready to roll. I'm like, no problem. So, of course, we were late leaving. And we were about 2.5 hours away from home when we even left. So it was about probably 9:15-ish. We were about 10 miles away from home. And this was the days right when cell phones were coming in. Nobody really had the handhelds. But the guy that I was with had his own business, and he had a mobile phone in his truck. So as soon as we're, like I said, about 10 minutes away from home. Now it's 9:15 and the phone rings, and he just looks at me and he's like, man, you know who that is? Like, I know, I'm in trouble. So he answers it and he's like, yep, it's her. And he handed me the phone. She's like, where are you? We're late. Your sister's been here for 2 hours. And so I gave her, the old excuse, and we're 10 minutes away from town. And we'll be there. I can hop in the shower. It's only 9:30. Still got an hour and a half hanging out there with everybody. And she's like, okay, just get home. And we're coming up on there's one big round turn before it's a straight shot into town. And we could see the bubble lights of a cop. And I hung up the phone. And I look at my watch and it's 9:18. And I was like, yeah, we'll be there in plenty of time. And as soon as I put the phone back in the cradle, I looked up again, and the flashing lights were gone. And this was oldie time days. So the cassette we were listening to on the stereo, same song, but it bumped forward like about 6 or 7 words. And it's not, like a CD will scratch or an LP will scratch, but a cassette doesn't just bump forward. But anyway, we hit the turn, and there's no lights. There's no cop car. There's no car pulled over on the side of the road. There's no tail lights. And we just kind of look at each other like, man, that's freaking weird. And there was another guy with this, and we go, did you see that? And he's like, I didn't see nothing, man. Didn't see nothing. And so we just drive home kind of in silence, trying to figure out what was going on. And we get there, get home. My little sister's car is gone, but my friend's wife's car is there. And I'm like, man, what's going on here? That was pretty quick change. And we get in, and she just tore into me. She's like, where are you? We're going to be there. We're not going to make it now. And I was like, man, I told you. It's like, what is it, 9:35? We'll get there. And I looked down at my watch, and it was 10:35. And she's like, where the hell were you? You just said you were 10 minutes outside of town. I was like, yeah, we were right at the turn. I called you at 9:30, 9:18. She's like, where the hell were you? Like, let me smell your breath. What are you guys doing? And no excuse. And ever since, and so I don't know what happened there. I have no memory. I'm not saying anything happened. I don't know what's what. But ever since that time, I've had I started having sleep paralysis and major insomnia. Can't sleep, don't sleep well. I've looked into the sleep paralysis, and people say, I understand the physics behind it, your REM sleep and all that stuff, but I feel sometimes the presence that some people feel about, and like there's somebody in the room or somebody, because sometimes it's just like a normal, I guess you'd say, sleep paralysis, and then sometimes it's just like added terror to it, like I really need to wake up and want to wake up, but I can't. Sometimes it's just like, oh man, I'm stuck in the loop, and I just can kind of relax and ride it out. In one house I was living in particular, I got another story with this house too, but every time I had the sleep paralysis in this house, I felt the terror instead of just the standard, sleep paralysis. And I'd hear 3 knocks on the wall of my room, and then I could wake up. I could snap out of it, but not until I heard the 3 knocks, and that never happened anywhere else. So I don't know what that was all about.
So you say that you could feel a presence occasionally. Did you ever get to see anything, any kind of a shape or form or a shadow, anything like that?
No, and that's what I tried. I've talked to other people that have had it, and I've read a lot about it. I've been to doctors and talked about it, and they're like, yeah, your REM sleep gets screwed up, and your mind's awake, but your body can't react. And I'm like, yeah, I understand the physics behind that, but there's still some times when I feel this presence, but you're locked up. Your body is literally frozen. My mind's going full blast, but my body won't react to anything. So I feel like there's something like right out of the edge of my vision, right out of the corner of my eye. Especially those ones when it took the 3 knocks to snap me out of it. But no, I've never seen anything.
Now, what about your other hunting partners after this over an hour missing time? Did they have similar problems with sleep and all of that after this?
One of them refused to talk to us about that incident, and he didn't really. I don't know if he did or not. The other one, he had not the sleep paralysis like I got, but we both got. I also got lucid dreaming out of it. and we would talk about it every now and then. And he said, man, I can kind of control my dreams now. And I don't know if it's got anything to do with, what happened. And that's about all he would say too about what happened. We never really talked about it because it kind of, was bizarre. And I think he got in more trouble than I did. My wife was a pit bull. And I think his wife really kind of tore into him about what happened, about us being late and missing the thing, and blamed him. And so he didn't really we didn't talk about it much. But I know he did get the lucid dreaming out of it.
And none of you guys recall seeing a craft or anything like that?
We didn't see anything. That's the weird thing about it. I don't remember, couldn't tell you anything. I mean, I'm pretty deep into the weird stuff. That's why I'm calling you. And there's no, marks on the body. No, we didn't see a craft. We didn't see anything. Nothing other than the fact that it was like guaranteed. We all know that we lost that time, and that we saw that light, and then it was gone. The cop car, had someone pulled over, and that's a stretch. It's like an 8-mile stretch that's pretty straight, and there was no other side road. So if there was a car there, even if it was just a cop car for some reason with his lights on, not having somebody pulled over, we would have seen him or seen his taillights, or he would have spun around and come back at us. We didn't see another car on that road.
It makes me wonder if the police officer and whoever he had pulled over had anything weird happen to them. There's no way to know, but that's where my mind goes.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until years later. And I was like, we should have checked with the sheriff and seen if they pulled anybody over out there that night, if that was some information we could have got from them. But it was years later before I thought of that. So we didn't.
No, this was in Washington State, right?
Yes. Yep.
Did you ever go back and look at, and most people don't take the time to even go to a website and report anything. And if this was when cell phones were just coming out, then this was probably not really a thing that much. But did you ever go back and see if anyone eventually reported seeing a craft or strange lights in that area at that time?
Not that exact area. I don't know if you're familiar with the Toppenish Lights incident. That's another, it was kind of a big flap. And there's a book about it now. I just got that book and I realized that it was kind of the same time frame as a few years before what happened with us. But Toppenish, only 35, 40 miles away from where this happened. And they had a whole summer of crazy stuff. The reservation police, there's a small reservation up there, and the reservation police were chasing stuff all over. And the city cops they were taking all kinds of everybody calling in and saying they were seeing stuff. And that one kind of backs up to it's near Natchez and outside of Yakima. It's in between where I was in Yakima. And if you're a Bigfoot girl, you know a lot of stuff there in the Cascades, around Natchez and Yakima. And that was all kind of tied in. But Toppenish Lights, it's a great book. But like I said, that was kind of basically the same time frame and the same area. And it's also near, we were maybe 10 miles from a commercial nuclear reactor and the Hanford Reservation, the DOE reservation. So there's a lot of nuclear stuff going on around there. And there's also, as you know, theories about kind of extra people seeing stuff around nuclear installations. I mean, I got plenty of friends growing up that saw stuff. nobody, with a full on, I got beamed aboard a ship or anything, but lots of people see things in the sky.
Yeah, and there's less light pollution in that part of the country,
Yeah,
especially in that part of that
definitely.
state. So it's easier to see when there's weird things in the sky. But yeah, definitely, if there's a nuclear installation, there's going to be some stories around places like that. So, I mean, do you feel like when you look back on that and do the sleep issues still continue to this day, Taylor?
Oh yeah, yeah. And this was, like I said, this was 1990, so 35 years ago. And before that, it was great. I was great, man. I no issues really to speak of. And I still have, I don't get what were we just talking about? The paralysis as much as I used to, but it still comes and goes. But I'm 60 years old and I fall out of bed sometimes, or I wake up on the floor, or I got, like I said, the lucid dreaming. I didn't even know what a lot of this stuff was until the last 5 or 10 years when I started reading and watching shows about stuff. But I never had that before, and now, and it goes both ways. If I'm having a good dream, I can like steer it almost like a movie and make things happen. But when I wake up, it's gone. But if I'm in a bad dream and I'm trying to get out of it, I'll wake up, like I'll make myself wake up and fall right back asleep, and I'll be right back where I was in the bad dream. And I can even get up, go to the bathroom, walk around for a minute because I'm just like, man, this dream sucks. And I don't want to be there. And then I go back to bed, fall asleep, and boom, right back at it.
I mean, do you have what you consider to be dreams about being taken or being around entities, anything like that?
Sometimes, I mean, I can't say like I'm getting probed or seeing anything specific, but it's just like an overall feeling of terror. It's darkness and like stuck somewhere that I can't get out of, that type thing. And but nothing specific. I wish it was specific. It'd probably help or make it worse, but either way, it'd be better, I think.
Do you wonder if some of these are not dreams? Like if you're waking up on the floor, maybe they put you back in the wrong spot? I don't know.
That's, sometimes I know, like normally when you fall out of bed, you go like, oh shit, I fell out of bed, man. Like it wakes you up. But there have been a couple of times when I just flat woke up on the floor. Like I'll be sleeping on the couch or something. Years ago it happened a few times, and I just wake up on the floor, but it was like a low rider couch, and I'm like, oh man, I must just fallen off. So, but yeah, I mean, I gotta say I've thought of that before.
It's a scary thought though. So I would be like you would be like, "Oh, it's just a shitty dream. It's just a
Exactly.
bummer of a dream."
Yes.
So these sleep disturbances happened literally right after this incident for you guys.
Yeah. Before that, I was a hard sleeper, and I never had any sleep problems at all. Sometimes I couldn't get to sleep at night when I was a kid, but I also had restless legs bad and stuff like that. Um, I was often the last person in my house to fall asleep. I could hear everybody else snoring and sawing logs, but it wasn't like I was up all night. It just took me a minute to fall asleep. And once I was out, I was out. And that was it. Nothing weird about dreams, no terrors, no paralysis, no lucidity. I couldn't control anything. Just a dream was a dream.
I
And
do wonder though if the one guy that really refuses to say anything about this, if he actually remembers quite a bit more about what went on in that little over an hour time period.
Yeah, I see. He was like a friend of a friend, and so I knew him, but we were both there because the guy driving my friend, his brother owned the land, and it was like from where we were up a couple hours north up outside of Spokane. And so there were a lot of people that were kind of in the clique that went hunting with his family. And that third guy, and both of these guys are gone now, so I couldn't talk to him, if I wanted to about it. But he just flat refused. He was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. We're like, it's a pickup. We're in a pickup truck. You saw the same shit we did. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just refused. And I asked my other buddy about it one time when we were talking about the dreaming. I don't even remember how that came up, but we were talking about getting this lucid dreaming out of it. It's because I was asking him if he had any other sleep trouble, and he was like, "No, but I can dream like a freaking maniac now." And I said, "Well, what about the other guy?" And he's like, "I don't know. He won't talk to me about it. He won't say a word about it."
Yeah, I bet he remembers something pretty dark, maybe, or scary. Maybe he actually does remember seeing a craft or some weird lights, something close to what happened to Travis Walton in Fire in the Sky, something like that. I mean, I know that's very dramatized, but
we met Travis too a couple of years ago. What a great guy he is.
Yes, and he's never changed his story. And even the people that didn't like him, they said what he said, and they all passed the lie detector tests. So incredible.
Yeah, yes,
Incredible encounter.
And just a straight shooter, such a calm, quiet, genuine guy.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that he's like, hey, the movie is very dramatized from my actual version, and he's always said that, and I think that he's always said that the Paranormal Witness episode that I forget who did that, if it was Discovery, but he said that was the closest rendition to his actual experience. So I always like to put that out there. I think that you can watch those online somewhere. But anyway, okay, so Taylor, you said the B word. You said Bigfoot. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
I got no firsthand like visions of, but I have. First of all, I was hunting again. It's a hunting one, and it's in two separate parts of the state. You'll be familiar with both of them. But I was elk hunting with my brother and a friend in the Blue Mountains outside of Walla Walla. And the Bigfoot guys have been there on film a few times. And we were camped out, and they were sleeping in a tent, and I had a pickup with a camper on it. So I was sleeping in there, and I didn't hear anything all night long. I heard, the wind was blowing a little bit, and my brother hadn't been around elk much, and he's like, man, the wind was blowing through the tent poles all night long or all morning long, and it was waking me up and pissing me off. And the guy that he was with goes, that wasn't the wind blowing, that was elk bugling, I think. And he goes, but it didn't really sound like it, but I thought it was elk bugling. And I was like, well, what was it? And he said, I don't know. It just sounded like a bunch of screaming and hollering. I said, well, I don't know. It could have been. Who knows? And anyway, so we got our stuff ready, sunlight. We were walking down. They were talking about this. Then we got quiet because we were getting close to the bottom where we'd seen a small herd the day before. And we heard stuff running through the brush. And it was just daylight, and we couldn't really see anything. And we just got slapped in the face with the weirdest, grossest smell. It was like being the last person in a taxi in August in downtown Vegas. The freaking body sweat, and it was just horrible. Mixed with a little bit of just general musk and cat pee. It was just brutal. And I was like, well, man, it's a elk are rutting, and it was right about rut season. And I was new too. It's not like I knew what was going on. I was like, man, I know they kind of pee on themselves and they go crazy, and that's probably what it is. We kept walking, and we just smelled this stench and heard stuff running through this thick brush. But like I said, we never saw anything. So that was it. No elk. There were no elk around. They were all gone. Everything was gone. We didn't see any deer, which was highly unusual for that area. And so we went home. That was it. That was that story. And then about 2 years later, I had a friend of mine that another guy, just a straight shooter. We never even talked about anything weird or anything. And we'd just been playing a poker game. And this guy grew up in Yakima. And we got done playing a cribbage tournament, it was. And we were just hanging out talking. And he goes, I saw Bigfoot once. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, when I was a kid, me and my dad went, we're up hunting outside of Yakima around Natchez again. He's like, yeah, it was a female. And I was like, how do you know it was a female? And he's like, because it had big hairy boobs. And I was like, well, yeah, I got you. He said he was just walking out of the brush and he was being quiet. And he saw what he thought was a chimpanzee, like Michael Jackson's little pet monkey, by this stream. And he's like, man, what the hell is a monkey doing out here up in the Cascades? And then he looked and he saw a big one leaning over the stream, scooping water out like a human would and drinking out of it. And he was making enough noise that she looked up. And that's when she stood up and he saw the big hairy boobs. And she held her arm out and the little one ran to her and they ran in the bushes. And he's like telling me all this. I'm like, why are you telling me this? And he goes, I don't know. I never tell anybody about it. I thought you'd be a guy that would appreciate it. I was like, well, yeah, that's pretty cool. So the next season I went hunting with him because I usually hunted over there on the east side in the Blue Mountains. And he hunted up there in the Cascades. And he's like, yeah, we'll go up there to the spot I used to go with my dad where we saw the Bigfoot. And I was like, cool. And so we got up there and we woke up and there was like a hot, steamy elk proof about 10 feet outside of our trailer door that we'd been slept in. And we're like, man, awesome. This is a good sign. So we took off. We'd been walking for about 30 minutes and we came up to a stream and he's like, this is the stream. We were about a mile away. This is the stream I was telling you about where we saw that Bigfoot. I was like, oh, cool. And so we were walking for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes and just got hit in the face with that same exact stench that we got when we were in Walla Walla. And I was like, man, what's that? And he goes, that's it. And I go, that's what? And he goes, that's exactly what I smelled when I saw that Bigfoot when I was a kid. And we looked and we didn't see anything. And then we heard stuff on the other side. This stream is like literally maybe 6 feet across. It's just a tiny little thing that trickled down. And the water was all muddy from something running in it. And we could hear stuff crashing through the bushes. But again, it could have been elk, deer, fox, who knows? But it was that same exact stench that I smelled a few years earlier in the Blues. And then I got thinking right then, I was like, about what my brother and the other guy we were with at that time about the sounds they heard, and the whooping and the ape calls and everything else. I was just thinking, man, they might have been hearing Bigfoot that night. Who knows? So neither time did I see anything. I didn't see footprints. I didn't even really hear anything. But both times I got the same stench that people talk about, and it could have been. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm really jealous of that sighting of your friend there who finally told you that story. That is a very cool Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah, and he, like I said, he's a guy. He didn't tell anybody. There were like 8 of us that played cribbage, and he waited till everybody else was gone. It was me and him, and we were just sitting around talking. And we talked about UFOs and weird shit before, and I was like, well, why? Where did that come from? It's like, oh, I don't know. I just figured you'd appreciate it. But he's not a guy that told, people that story. He didn't go around like, even when other people at work had started talking about weird stuff. We were working together for years. People would start talking about weird stuff and seeing this and that. And he wouldn't go, oh, well, geez, I saw Bigfoot. He was just very specific about who he told about it, because he didn't want people thinking he was a kook. But the story was so specific and so out of nowhere, there was no reason not to believe him.
Well, how about we talk a little bit about the Chupacabra?
Yeah, we were kind of nuclear based again. For a while, or a few times, we worked, me and the ex-wife worked refuel outages at the commercial nuclear plants. They'll go down for 6 to 12 weeks in the old days when they're redoing their fuel, and you go in and kind of work on that process. And so you get to see a lot of the country. You travel around, you make good money. And we were down at the South Texas project in Bay City, Texas, and you work 6 12-hour days in a row, and then you get a day off, and that's usually just kind of doing laundry and passing out and regrouping for the next. And so we'd been doing that for like 6 or 7 weeks, and it was our last weekend there, and I started seeing signs up around town for like a town-wide rummage sale type thing in LaGrange. And I was going, LaGrange, and I asked somebody there, a local, and I go, is that like the ZZ Top song, LaGrange? They're like, yeah, it's just right down the road here. And I was like, that is awesome. I got to go if I'm this close. So, and the wife was really big into that rummage sale, yard sale type stuff. So, and like, okay, cool. It's Saturday. We're done. Let's go down there. We had a kid, poor little guy, was too young to know what was going on. He was only like 10 months old at the time or so. But so the 3 of us were packed in the truck with all our stuff, and we're driving from Bay City to LaGrange. And again, this was 1998, and I had no clue about Chupacabra or anything. But we're driving, and we left early in the morning because we'd been getting up early anyway, and we wanted to get there. I was driving, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something running along the road, and I was like, man, there's a dog or some kind of animal running. And my wife looked over, and right when she looked over, this thing started to run across the road in front of the truck. So I almost stopped, and it was running pretty fast. But it's like my brain couldn't figure out what it was, because it was moving like a cat. Like it looked like a mountain lion or a cougar, like a big cat, but it had the head of a dog. It was like an obvious dog head, but it ran like a cat. And it was like bluish gray with spots on it and stuff. Like a very odd color to be any animal that I'm familiar with. but it ran across the road and it was gone. And we just like look at each other. We're like, what the hell was that? And, I'm just a kid from Washington. So just being in that part of Texas, I was seeing alligators and buzzards and all kinds of armadillos, animals that I'd never seen before. And I was really outdoorsy guy at the time. I was like, man, I got no idea what the hell that could have been. Anyway, so, and we talk about it every now and then over the next year or two, but neither one of us, I didn't have any idea what it was. And then I was watching an old Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, and it was a Chupacabra. And she looks over at me and she's like, shit, that's what we saw in Texas. And I was like, yeah, it is. And like it was exactly what Breedloves did the Chupacabra one with the Elmendorf Beast. And after I saw that, I was like, man, that is like exactly almost to a T what we saw. When I was younger, I know what a coyote looks like. I've seen hundreds of coyotes. We used to get in the mid 80s, you got decent money for the pelts, and just for to help farmers out during calving season, we'd go out and the pastures and shoot coyotes, and we'd actually turn the pelts in and pay for the ammo and the gas money. And so I know what they look like, and I know how big they are, and I know what they look like with mange, and I know what they look like in different color phases and how big they are. This thing we saw, we didn't see it for a long time, but we saw it really well and really close. And it was healthy and muscled, and it moved like a cat. It just, like I said, it looked like a dog. And the closest thing I've seen is that some of those clips on the Elmendorf Beast, which I found out later was also not far from where we were in between Bay City and LaGrange there.
Have you seen, it's been on TV quite a bit, but there's a woman in Texas that supposedly has one of these, they call them the quote unquote Texas blue dogs. It's stuffed in her house, the whole thing. Have you seen that? Is that similar as well?
That's very similar. The one we saw was, it was like thicker. It was it looked healthy. I mean, it looked like you could see muscles moving underneath the skin, especially since there was no fur, no hide. It really showed how toned and muscular this thing was. That's why I thought it was a cat, but it had the head of a dog, and it was hard to describe.
That's a cool sighting, though. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was right there. It was like literally, it followed along the side, kind of kept pace with us. And then there was a culvert in the road, and it would have had to either get up on the road or go around that or whatever, but it chose right then to cross the road. So it was right in front of us. And it was running pretty good, but still, like I said, it's got to get all the way across the road. So we saw it for a good few seconds.
All right, so next on the list, we have an ish-talking relative and photos flying off of a wall.
Yeah, that's just a little quickie I thought you might enjoy. This was at the same house I lived in for 10 years, and it was at the same one that when I locked up with the sleep paralysis at night, I couldn't snap out of it until the 3 knocks, and then I'd like come out of it. So this house, I had pictures of a bunch of my relatives up on my wall, like old 8x10s and whatever, of like old black and white pictures of great grandparents and great grandparents, generations past. And I had one of my uncle in the my grandpa in the early 30s sitting on a Harley out in an orange orchard. And the other side of my family, really, really stuffy. And they they were very, very religious. And my great grandfather was the mayor of a pretty well known town in Utah. And he's got a hall named after him at a university there. And he was big in the church there. And he was my dad tells us all kinds of stories about him. And it's very different. The other side of my family, they were kind of rednecks, came up from Mexico, and he's the one that had the Harley, and I had a picture of him on a buffalo hunt. And this other guy's just sitting in a straight back chair with his hands clasped over a Bible. And my sisters are also pretty religious. I'm not, but they stayed with the family belief. And they were visiting me one day, and we were like talking, and they're looking up at the pictures, and they're like, "Oh, that's such a good picture of him and grandmas and aunts." And then we just the picture of the other guy, great grandpa, he's just sitting there all pious, like almost like he was looking down on the rest of them. And that was kind of like the way I had it arranged, which was in no particular order, but I had him kind of up and over. And anyway, we started kind of talking some crap about how he's sitting there like he's better than everybody else. And like, well, I'm sure he thought he was. He was the mayor and he was the big dog. And then I kept going a little further than I should have, even than I would have, with how kind of straight laced my sisters are. And his picture just flew off the wall. It didn't drop. It flew. It landed like 3 feet away from the wall on the floor, and it landed face up, and the glass shattered, and and no other picture on that wall moved, and they were all hung exactly the same way. There was no earthquake. Nothing hit the outside. Nothing else even jiggled or moved or anything. But that picture of the guy that I had been shit talking flew off the wall and landed face side up, and the glass shattered. And that was the last time my sisters went to my house too. They were like, "Man, you can just come visit us at Dad's house when we come to town."
You know, Taylor, that whole 3 knocks thing that would bring you out of your sleep paralysis, there's definitely something to that, obviously. Have you ever come across another encounter or experience where they said that 3 knocks would bring them out of their sleep paralysis?
No, I've heard stuff about 3 knocks meaning something, or
Yeah.
3 knocks being a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never like experienced it at any time other than when I was in a sleep paralysis. And that, like I said, it was just like if you're sleeping and somebody slaps you. I mean, I'd come right out of it.
Well, I mean, the 3 knocks is usually the mocking of the Holy Trinity. So it is interesting that the one picture that flew off the wall was this, supposedly very on the high horse, pious man holding a Bible. And then you have 3 knocks that brings you out of this horrifying sleep paralysis. It's very scary to have sleep paralysis from what I hear. So I don't know. There's definitely something there.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I said, that's only one weird thing, but it was freaking bizarre.
That's one way to keep relatives out of the house, right? If you don't want visitors, like
Yeah,
that's one
that
way
did
to
the
do it,
job.
man.
Yep.
All right, next let's talk about Skinwalker.
All right. Before I got a real job and turned into an adult, and when I was like 19 or 20, I was working at this it's a lodge 35 40 miles from the Grand Canyon, and my mom worked there way back like in the 50s, and my older sister worked there. They hired these people were of a specific faith, the people that owned it, and they hired people of basically of that faith, or they kind of recruited heavily at one of those Utah schools. And but they had this deal kind of where anybody that had worked there, when as soon as they had kids, their kids were getting the interview, and if things worked out, they could go work there too. And they had a restaurant, a gift shop with a bunch of Indian art. There was a gas station, so there were all kinds of jobs to do, and you lived there. They had dormitories separated for girls and guys, and they also had a lot of Native Americans working there that did a lot of weaving. They sold a lot of weaving and pottery and art and beadwork out of their gift shop, and so a lot of those people had children, and they were mostly like the maids at the hotel. There was a hotel attached and some rental cabins, and so it was kind of a mixture of these native people and the good college kids. And I got an interview and got the job up there, and I was working out in the gas station, which at this time, this was like mid 84 ish. And so all it really was like filling cars up and cleaning windshields and hanging out, and not much to the job. And I didn't really get along with a lot of the people they hired from their university. Weren't my kind of people. So I moved my stuff out of there into the behind the gas stations where all the native people lived. And so I fell right in with those guys and became really good friends with them really quickly. And so they were telling me, yeah, you need to come down and hang out with us on the reservation sometime. So we'd get a day off, and I'd run down there. It was about a 2-hour drive maybe to get down to the reservation and just the edge of it. And I went down there with them a few times and had a great time. And I learned all kinds of stuff about their lore and their life and everything else. And well, I walked in one day, and one of them was listening to like a straight out of the Western movies, Indians beating on their drums and singing. I don't want to be disrespectful or racist, but it was just like you'd imagine in all the movies. And I was like, is that for you really listening to that? And they were like, hey, this is big. We're trying to learn this. I want to be a singer in the ceremonies. I want to be one of the drum guys. And I was like, I didn't know it was that big of a deal. And they're like, yeah, well, in a couple of weeks, we're having I can't remember, a powwow. And he says, they're like, come down to that and check it out. So I went down to that, and they had Indian dancing and singing. And it's like, I was just fascinated by all this because, I'm like 19, 20-year-old guy that had never really been away from home. And I was just like fascinated. And so when it was over, when the season was over, I didn't have anywhere, I was just going to go home. I didn't have a job at home. I was out of high school, wasn't going to college. And they're like, hey, why don't you come down, just come hang out, live with us for a while. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I just went down there, and I was staying with these guys, and kind of right on the edge of the Navajo and Hopi reservation is where we started out. And I was just living the life. We'd hang out every night, just hang out around fires, talking. They had a house that they lived in. The parents kind of all lived separate, and they gave the kids one house, so it was all just a full-time party and video games and all this stuff. And I was just kind of getting immersed in the culture and how life was out there, and the the good part about how they didn't have to worry about a whole lot, but also the struggle, and that there really wasn't a whole lot out there. And they never talked. Every now and then they talk about like the Skinwalker thing, but they really didn't like to talk about it. And they talk about it just enough to scare me, like out around a fire. They're like, "Oh yeah, they hate white people," and then they'd start laughing. Go, "Nah, it's all good." And after I'd been out there for like 3 weeks or a month, again, not to sound racist, but I realized that there was no other white people out there, and I was just like, man, I know how these people feel. I was kind of getting an appreciation for being the odd guy out. And there was one other white guy, and he drove. He was an EMT, and he owned his own ambulance, and he was married to a native girl. And people that got sick or got cuts or just needed a little help, instead of driving all the way to a place with a doctor or trying to mess with government bureaucracy and insurance, they'd come to this guy, and he'd patch him up or hook him up, give him, you know, medicine that he had or that he could get a hold of. But he was the only other white guy that was out there. And anyway, we're after I'd been out there for about a month, they were like, "Yeah, we're going to go way back to sheep camp. It's time where we're going to shear the sheep and dehorn the calves." And why it was like all this cowboy stuff that I'd like only seen in movies and heard of. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to go. And they're like, man, it is way out there. And it's like hogans to mud huts or tents, and that's it. And we're going to be out there for like 2 weeks. And I was like, no, that's cool. I'm down. And they said, okay, we got to go to, there was this other thing, kind of like a big community sale. I don't remember what they called it, but um, it's where they got all the provisions to go on this, to go up there for a couple of weeks. So we were there, and we're buying getting water and soda pop and food and stuff. Uh, and they sell for the fry bread. A lot of these people would buy like 50-pound or bigger bags of flour, and then they put it into Ziploc bags, and they'd sell it at this bazaar thing we were at for people to take up in the hills to cook with. And so we were sitting there, and I saw a bunch of these big Ziploc bags filled with flour. And I said, "Oh, look at that. We can even get some Coke to take up there." And I mean, he is 100% kidding. I'd never touched cocaine in my life. I wouldn't have known it if it would have hit me in the head. But I saw movies, and I thought it looked like a brick of Coke. And so they kind of laughed. And then this guy, big, older Indian Navajo guy, with kind of glaucomas in his eyes, he says, "Oh, you're funny with your cocaine joke." And I just turned around, and this is Billigana with your cocaine. And Billigana just means white person. I'm probably not saying it right. And it's not a derogatory term. It's just the word. But the way he was saying it, it was sliding out of his mouth, and he was looking at me. It was just like he was calling me the N word. And I was like, what? And my friends just saw this guy, and they were like, oh, no, he was just kidding. No, we're sorry. And he said it again. He kept saying it, Billigana and cocaine, and you brought the alcohol, and you guys did this. And like all of a sudden, the fact that I was white and the only white, I felt really terrified for a minute. And my friends again were like, "No, he's sorry," you know. And I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. It was just a joke. I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't, you know. I'm sorry." And they're like kind of trying to hustle me away from this guy. And then he kept saying it. And I finally, you know, I was young and dumb. And I turned around and I'm like, "Hey, man, I apologize. I'm sorry." And my friends grabbed me and they're like, "No, no, let's go. Let's go. Just keep going." And the guy was still yelling and kind of being a dick the whole time they were hustling me away. And I was like, "What's up with that guy?" And two of my friends just shut up and they wouldn't even talk. And the one guy that I was really good friends with, he said, he's just, you don't want to mess with that guy. He's the people say he's a witch and that his family people just stay away from him. I said, "What do you mean a witch?" Like a witch? And he's like, "Yeah, they do bad magic and they live out by their, you know, out by themselves. And uh, you don't want to piss them off." And I'm like, "Well, it's a little late for that." And he's like, "Well, you know, don't worry about it. You know, we're going to go up sheep camp. Everything's going to be cool. We'll get back and things will die down." So we would go up to this sheep camp for a week and we're shearing sheep, dehorning calves. I was having the time of my life. I saw all kinds of cool stuff and learned a bunch of stuff. And then they were like, "All right, we're going to go see my grandma before we head back to town." And she lived like even another 10 miles out in the middle of nowhere from the sheep camp that was 15 miles from nowhere. So now we are like out in the middlest of the middle of nowhere. Um, and there's like 3 or 4 little hogans out there where this guy's grandma and one of his uncles and some other relatives lived. And we were out there for a night and we were having a great night, good food, hanging out by the fire. That was the furthest from civilization I've ever been. The night sky was so clear you could see, like, it was amazing. And I said I was having the time of my life. And the next night, the second night, we were hanging out and it just kind of it felt weird all of a sudden. Things felt weird. And his grandma had 3 dogs, like healers, cattle dogs. And they were like, you know, they were pretty badass little dogs. And they jumped up from the fire and went and ran into the house. And my friend's like, "Man, that's weird. They never do that." And so we're sitting there by the fire, and we hear this like again, not to be racist, but uh, like in the movies, like a war cry type sound, like you would hear if you're watching a movie about the natives, and it kind of was jarring out there in the pitch black in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And they said, "Well, let's just go inside." So we go inside and we heard it again. And then we started to hear like coyotes yapping, but it was like they were running away. And then there was a deeper, more grunt growl. And we look out the window and there was a light like a torch way far out. And then it was closer. And then it was closer and it was like running in a zigzag, but running way faster than like a person or an animal should have been able to in this like I said, a zigzag pattern. And we're like, "Man, what the hell is that?" And the dogs are freaking out and we were hearing this wolf howl and seeing this light zigzag. And his grandma had it was pretty standard, everybody had guns out there, had a old rifle sitting over by the doorway. And it didn't have a real door. It had like a big rug hanging in the doorway. And the dogs were going crazy. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And she just said, you guys sit down. And the light stopped. The light went out. And then we heard more of this weird sound. And then there was a smack on the backside of this hogan we were in. And then another one on the side of it. And then right out, like in front of the door a ways, we heard the howl again or whatever it was. And she stuck the rifle out the front of the thing and shot. And then nothing happened. We kept hearing stuff. And she shot a second time, and we heard a yeep, like a dog or something got hit. And then her dogs settled down, and then they ran outside. And so we're like, well, everything must be cool now. The dogs are fine. It's gone. And I said, what the hell was all that? What's going on? And my friends wouldn't say anything to me. They didn't want to talk about it. And then the grandma's like, what's going on? Like she knew something was up. And so then they told her the whole story about me and the glaucoma guy at the market. And she just shook her head and she said, you guys are messing with stuff you shouldn't mess with. And I said, it was my fault, but I wasn't messing with anything. I just made a stupid joke, and it wasn't appreciated. And I tried to apologize, but maybe I was kind of, being rude to the guy, even in my apology. And the next morning, it was light, like maybe 2 hours after that. And she's like, well, you guys should probably go and get back to where you're going. So we went back to town and we were hanging out for a couple of days. Nobody talked all the way back to town, and probably 10 words like the whole time. And then we never really talked about it that day. And then the next day I was like, man, is this something we should talk about? And they're like, man, you don't even want to know. That night, an ambulance driver came over to the house. He was hanging out and they were playing video games and stuff. And he goes, oh, Taylor, I saw your buddy yesterday. And I was like, what buddy? And he goes, the old man, he came in 2 nights ago and we dug a bullet out of his ass.
Oh,
and
my God.
I was like, yeah. We were like, what? And he goes, yeah, the old man came in, we dug a 30 caliber bullet out of his ass. I was like, wow. And then my friend's like, man, we shouldn't even. And I was like, I don't know. I know your traditions and I respect you, but I'm going to tell him. And I told the guy this story, and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to add anything to that, but I've helped this family a couple of times and I've seen shit that I don't want to talk about.
Holy crap. I was wondering if that was going to happen, but when you actually said it, I was like, okay, that is okay. Wow. How much longer did you stay after that, or did you boogie?
I was getting ready to leave anyway. I'd been there for like a month.
Yeah.
So, but I stayed for another week or so. And this was 1984. I still talk to the guy all the time. I mean, we're friends, but we have never talked about that again.
So what you perceived as a torchlight off in the distance, when it was quote unquote running back and forth, whatever, it was somebody holding it or whatever it was, did it dim or did the shape of it alter when it was in this zigzag pattern?
No, and that's something that was really odd, because it looked like a flame, like a flickering flame, but it's like, just in pure physics, how the hell could a flame keep lit moving at that speed? But it's like we wouldn't see it like you could see the flame. It was like you saw it here, then you saw it here, then you saw it here, then here.
And it was not moving faster than a person could run.
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, it was
Really?
crazy. Yeah.
I love though how the grandma's like, you all need to go now. Bye. Thanks for
Yeah.
stopping. Bye. See ya.
Yep. She didn't kick us out in the middle of the night, but as soon as the sun came
Oh,
up, she was like,
that
man,
would have
you
sucked.
guys, bye-bye.
That would have sucked out in the middle of the night with whatever is out there. Yeah. So, did
Yeah.
you see the old man again before you left?
No. And I'm glad I didn't. I mean, he was terrifying as it was. This guy, he was very tall and thick. And I said, most of these, again, not to sound racist, but generally speaking, they have very black or dark hair and dark eyes. And this guy was old, so he had long white hair, but his eyes were like almost cataract. They almost looked like a bluish, hard to describe, but they were terrifying. And he just and I thought about it even at the time, like he just threw off this evil, shitty aura. But at the time, I was thinking it might just be because he's pissed at me. I said something. It was stupid. These people have been through a lot, and sure, white people screwed them over and then brought in the alcohol and caused all these problems. And I was there and I was a target and I was saying stupid stuff. So maybe I just brought it out in him. But he really did project like not a whole lot of goodness coming out of him.
Holy smokes. See, and even with whatever he had going on with his eyes, I hazard to say he could see just fine and see a whole lot better than we could, like another kind of sight.
Yeah. 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 It's I said, and these guys, they don't, like, I knew what they told me they'll tell you what a skinwalkers are, but they don't just sit around and talk about them. Or the ones my friends didn't. And then, like, when we were out in the desert in the middle of the night, and they started saying something about, well, they love white people, and they just to scare me, just to give me a little crap, and then, but just long enough to kind of get me fired up, and then boop, we'd be talking about girls and cars and guns and like normal stuff.
And there was no hint of headlights or taillights or hearing any vehicles pull up or leave during that whole experience.
No, no, and it was like coming straight through the desert. It would have been like a bit like a Baja
Wow.
through nowhere. There was the only road going in and out, actually, to where this little group of Hogans was the one that we drove in on, and this came from like a 45-degree angled direction out from the desert towards it.
After you left, did you, I mean, because you say you still talk to one of the guys that you were out there with, did the old dude ever bring anything up? Did anyone ask him, is
No.
your ass okay after getting shot, after stalking the
Yeah.
white guy? Like, did
No,
anything ever come up?
nobody said a word. They saw him, they'd see him around town at that and I can't remember what they call that now, but it's just like a big general square, and it's kind of like out on the roadside. If you've ever been through the Southwest, on the roadside they'll sell their beadwork and jewelry, and it's like that. Only it's actually deeper in, so they're not trying to sell each other their own shit. It's just kind of like a big rummage sale, but they sell a lot of food items there also. And that guy would come in, him and his I guess he had two sisters and a mom that was still alive. I don't even know how, because this guy looked like he was 110, but supposedly he had a mother that was still alive that would come in every now and then too. And my friend Phil, he said people just stay away from them because they're creepy and everybody knows that they're into weird shit. But nobody says anything to them or does. Everybody's kind of afraid of them.
I can see why. Well, that makes sense. So maybe, it wasn't such a great question, because I think that the prevailing thought is we don't say the word Skinwalker around here. We don't talk about people that we think might be Skinwalkers around
Yeah.
here. We just keep our mouths shut. So that
See, and
would make sense.
that's why, like, the ambulance driver, he just, as soon as he said that he'd been out there and done stuff for him, he was sorry that he said it. Like, he didn't even want to admit
Oh
or
man.
say, talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't want to bring any bad. And then I was even thinking, I was like, man, yeah, if it's at a point where if they really are into all kinds of their weird shit magic, and it's something that they still need some flunky EMT to drive out there and has broke down old ambulance to help them with normal medicine, then it must be bad. And it must be something that I don't know if they swear him to silence or he's just terrified of them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be either way. I would imagine, though, considering what you witnessed, I'd imagine they are absolutely terrified of that dude. Oh, I love that one. That one is creepy, Taylor. Holy shisa. Oh my God.
Yeah.
To have him
Yeah.
actually have a wound that matched after they had been telling you, nope, nope, let's squash this. Let's go to sheep camp. Everything's cool. Everybody's cool. Well, it wasn't so cool. I guess he held on to that for a little bit.
Well, yeah, and it was like I said, it was like, I mean, I'm sure they've been out there for generations, so everybody knows everybody, but still, just for if that's really what happened for this guy to pick the fact that I'm with the grandkids of somebody and he knows that we're gonna after sheep camp, we're gonna, you know, how did he know where we were when we were there? Is always struck me as odd too.
Oh, yeah, that's true because everyone knew you're going to sheep camp, but maybe not everyone knew that you were visiting
Yeah,
the grandmother's
nobody knew.
house.
Yeah, that came up at the
Oh.
very last minute. It was like, well, shit, we're this close. Let's go see my grandma. Like, okay,
Oh, man. Well, that
love to meet
probably means that he was watching y'all.
something. Yeah.
Do you remember anything weird during the time at sheep camp?
No, man, it was a blast. Like I said, I had the time of my life. I saw, you know, I'd never been around. I mean, a city boy, it was like only a town of 32,000, 30,000 when I was growing up, but still, I had no experience with livestock at all. So watching the sheep shearing, and every night we were like barbecuing sheep and goats, and it was, I just was seeing all kinds of stuff I'd never seen. It was a blast.
That does sound so fun, and especially just every night you're out of doors. You're having the campfires. You're seeing the dark sky above you. But holy smokes, that one is a big wowza. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about what happened in Pasco.
Oh, it's another weird one. Like with my sisters. Um, I got no explanation for this one either. I was working like a mid shift, so I was getting home at midnight roughly, and I would park my truck, walk around the house, and go up the deck and go in through the sliding door in the back. And we had a 120-pound Rottweiler at the time, and he'd always meet me back there at the fence when I came in. Then my wife at the time and my kid was like, my youngest was there. He was like 5-ish probably. They'd be asleep, and so I'd hang out with the dog, watch TV for a while, and go to bed. I was coming around the side gate there like I always do, and the dog wasn't there. And it's like, man, what's up with that? And like right then, every hair on my body stood up, and I was just like almost terrified in fear for no reason. It's got to be like when there's a grizzly bear about to jump out of the bushes at you or something. I looked up, and there was this guy, looked kind of like a, I don't know, like a picture, a cartoon genie maybe. Had like a, he looked like a dark skinned Indian Swami kind of guy, like with the traditional cartoon turban and that stuff that you have. I was just like, whoa. And when I could talk, I was like, who are you? He goes, who do you think I am? I said, I don't know. Who are you? And he goes, you know who I am. And I said, I don't know who you are. Who are you? And what do you want? And he goes, you know what I want. And then it's like clicking in my head that his mouth isn't moving, but I can hear him talking. He's like not really floating, but doesn't seem to be on the ground. And there's kind of a like almost like he's a 3D projection, but I know if I stuck my finger out, I could poke him in the chest. It's a very odd look. And I said again, I don't know who you are. And he's like, you know who I am. And I said, what the hell do you want? And he's like, you know what I want, and we'll meet again. And then he was gone, just like gone. And I was like, what the hell was that? And I walked upstairs, and my big, tough dog was laying underneath the kitchen table. He wouldn't even come out. And then he came out when I came through the door. And I went and I woke my wife up, and I told her, and she's like, what? I think I said, I just saw the devil. When I walked in, I said, I just saw the devil. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? But again, that's another one that was like 25 years ago, and nothing's happened since. And I don't know what the hell it was, but it was very odd.
Man, what did you do, huh? We shall meet again. That sounds so ominous. Did he say
Yeah.
did he say that last part in an ominous way?
He just said, no, it was all very flat. It was all very
Just matter of fact, yeah.
Very like, you know who I am.
Oh.
It's like, and to this day, I don't. I mean, I want to.
You're like, no, I really don't. That's why I asked.
And you know what I want. Well, actually, I don't. You're scaring the crap out of me, and I don't know who you are.
I mean, so you say you looked up and there he was. Was he standing in front of you in your path to get into the house?
Yeah. Yes. It's like out of nowhere. And like I said, it took me a minute to move because it was that fight or flight thing, and every hair on my body, and I was like almost frozen for a minute. I was just terrified, and I didn't know why, like an adrenaline shot.
Well, and also your 120-pound Rottweiler knew from inside the house that some really bad stuff was going on outside.
Yeah, I mean, every night that was our thing. He was out there waiting for me. Like, he'd hear my truck, and so he'd come over to the side gate, and that was it. But not tonight. He was inside.
What was this guy wearing? What was his clothes like?
That's the other thing. He was wearing, I'm gonna come across as the most racist person that was ever on your show, but he looked like a Swami, like a Pakistan Indian type, that dark skin like that, and the loincloth type thing that they wear, like I don't know if that's like oldie time biblical stuff, or if it was like the gurus and the swamis off of TV and cartoons. Black hair, black eyes.
Black eyes. No whites in the eyes?
No, just black, like supernatural demon eyes.
How far away do you think you were from him?
I was close, like I said, man. If I had the guts, I was close enough to poke him in the chest to see that he was real, but probably 3 feet, 4 feet away. And it came out of nowhere.
And then describe in as much detail as you can how he left or poofed or whatever he did.
It just gone.
Like did he fizzle out, or it was like you blinked and then you opened your eyes and he's gone?
That's it. He was there and then he was gone. No poof, no sizzle, no sound, no smell.
Mouth never moved.
And no, and it took me a minute to figure that out, like I said, because, he kept saying the same stuff over and over. You know who I am. You know what I want. Like the third time he said it, I was like, damn, man, his mouth isn't even moving. How am I getting this?
I mean, besides him floating in the air, I think the mouth not moving would be one of the creepier parts. Just besides, how he appeared in front of you, of course. Did he ever move his hands or make any gestures?
No, no, like it was almost like it could have been a hologram if it wasn't for he didn't do anything really. His face never really changed, except that at the very end when he said, "We'll meet again," he had this kind of a smirky, crappy look on a grin on his face.
Mm. I hope you don't have to meet him again. I don't think that he was something good, especially since your primal fear kicked in even before you saw him.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, we hear about that a lot in various encounters where before they ever see anything, their body is telling them, you're about to have a life-changing situation.
Yeah, that's what I mean when read a lot of stories and watch a lot of stuff on the outdoors still, and when people are getting tracked by a mountain lion or there's a grizzly in the bushes getting ready to jump on them, that sixth sense kind of kicks in and they get locked up with adrenaline.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's even before if they even see what it is.
Right.
That's given them this primal fear, right? And sometimes they do see it and they have that confirmation, which is horrifying. Or maybe it's worse not to know. I don't know. It could be any kinds
Either
of
way.
things. Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah, big no thanks on that. I mean, that's a no thanks side. That's a very unique one. I hope that somebody hearing that will please reach out to me because I would love to pass that along to Taylor and go, you're not the only one to see this devil genie dude, whatever the hell he is. That's unique.
That's why one of the things that got me to call you, these are all just kind of little random stuff, but I notice a lot of times you have other people that listen that have had similar stuff or know someone that has, and they can kind of get answers.
Yep. And a lot of times it's just the little details, even in the bigger picture of things, that gets somebody to reach out. So I do hope that somebody does. So yeah, as Taylor said, if you or someone you know, or even if you've just heard it on another show, send it along because it's none, out of the two of us, it's not like you can listen to every show that's out there. There's so many and so many encounters, even online, that are written. So if somebody comes across something like that, that is extremely unique. But Taylor, I thank you so much for being willing to come on and share these.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.